Here it comes. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow! In your life have you seen anything like that?
Everyone knows Tiger Woods. For those of you who don't, he has won 79 PGA Tour events, which sets him in second place all time. Although golf doesn't seem like a dangerous sport, elite athletes like Tiger Woods still put themselves at risk for injury every time they play a hole. Golfers experience compression loads on their spine that are equal to the forces that a football player endures during a collision. The prevalence of these injuries have increased over time, considering about 52% of all reported golf injuries are associated with lower back pain. With this in mind, we wanted to understand why golfers experience more injuries using a modern golf swing opposed to a classic golf swing. Let's take it back to the basics. The driver shown to the left is typically the first club used when you are teeing off. As you can see, this has a bigger head with a longer shaft. The wedge shown on the right is typically used for close distances and can be used on any type of surface. The picture demonstrates a head with an exaggerated angle compared to the driver head, which propels the ball higher up in the air. There is a difference in club head velocity due to the different characteristics of these clubs. This graph portrays the club head speed during a golf swing when using the driver. At initial stance, velocity is 0. As the golfer slowly draws back his club into the top of his stance, the velocity slightly increases. At the top of his stance, the velocity returns to 0 for a split second. The start of his downswing is where the action begins. The peak velocity reaches 35 meters per second within just a tenth of a second. The velocity is consistent from downswing to follow-through, and ball contact is made here. Lastly, velocity decreases to 0 at the end of the golf swing. Here is a very similar velocity curve using the wedge. As you can see, the same trends apply with one major difference, the maximum velocity. Here, the wedge reaches a peak velocity of 29 meters per second compared to the driver's peak velocity of 35 meters per second. This is a significant difference. Here you can see that the peak velocity has an impact on the distance that the ball travels. The driver goes 20% faster than the wedge, which results in a distance of approximately 270 yards opposed to a distance of 135 yards using the wedge. Although the driver only goes 20% faster than the wedge, the distance of the shot doubles. These distances were recorded on average at the driving range by our golfer. Because of the faster peak velocity using the driver, we hypothesized that more injuries will occur using the driver. To gain more knowledge on back injuries associated with golf, we consulted the Lumbar Spine and Low Back Pain in Golf Literature Review by Gluck, Bendo, and Spivak. As shown in the video, the golfer with the classic swing uses his hips more and has little to no lateral flexion. The increased hip turn decreases the compressive forces on the lumbar spine. This video illustrates that the modern golf swing involves more back rotation and uses lateral flexion due to the limited hip rotation, which are supported by our data. This graph demonstrates lateral flexion and back rotation throughout a golf swing using the wedge. We decided to focus on the wedge because it is used more often than the driver. The data collected here reflects the modern golf swing. The red line represents lateral flexion, which stays constant until ball contact. During follow-through, the golfer flexes to the right by approximately 48 degrees. At the end of the swing, he straightens back up. The green line represents back rotation. As the golfer draws his club back, he rotates to the right by approximately 63 degrees, then rotates left 110 degrees during the downswing and follow-through. This graph puts together both lateral flexion and back rotation from the previous graph. This depicts that only rotation to the right occurs with no lateral flexion. The straight line represents only one motion occurring at a time. This represents downswing to the left. After ball contact, both lateral flexion and back rotation occur at the same time, which is where the risk of injury is at its highest. If this were a classic golf swing, we wouldn't see the combination of flexion and rotation. The same trends appear in the graphs with respect to the driver. More injuries occur with the driver due to the high velocities as explained earlier. By analyzing the data and consulting the article, we determined that the most common cause of back injuries like disc herniations was rotation combined with lateral flexion and compression. These motions occur simultaneously during the modern golf swing. This is the reason why the prevalence of back injuries has increased over time. So remember, next time you are at the range, take caution when swinging at high velocities or you'll end up like Trevor, who we hope has a speedy recovery.